phone, so if you can't hear me at any point, let me know. But I think this is a better option for now. Awesome. All right, so welcome everybody. We'll be waiting for folks to trickle in as we're starting our welcome and introductions. Welcome to your 60-second CSC meeting. My name is Laura Martinez, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Jared Zachary and Amy Ramos, and we are so excited to be facilitating your meeting today. In terms of how we'll spend our time together, this month's agenda is designated to talk through the possibility of reallocating some funds to expand the residential lawn and garden measure, as well as hearing urban greening and vegetative barriers updates. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions and share your reflections with the Air District and Little Manila Rising during these two agenda items. So these two agenda items will take up the majority of our meeting for today. And excuse me, we will go through our meeting logistics. And I know many of you are experts in this, but it's always helpful to have a refresher. So let's go ahead and walk through our housekeeping slides. Let me share my screen. Oh, let me present. Can you all see our screen? Yes, all right. So before we get started, please go ahead and mute yourself and make sure your full name and organization are showing as your screen name. To change your screen name, please click the top right of your picture/video. So you'll see you have three little buttons. Then you click that, the rename option will show up. You can click rename and rename yourself. And during our meeting, myself, Jared, and or Amy or the Air District will go ahead and rename you as well. CSC members, please use the naming convention CSC-first name, last name. Residents use the naming convention R, first name, last name. And Air District, CARB, and public members, you can use the naming convention on the screen, similar to the one previously said out loud. As a friendly reminder, having the right screen name is important for CSC member attendance tracking. So if you're part of the stipend program, it's really crucial for you to have the correct name on the screen. If you want to link phone audio to video, you can click the little caret next to the unmute button on your lower left. The option switch to phone audio will show up. It's about third up from the bottom, and you can click switch to phone audio and you can link phone audio to video. Again, friendly reminder to change your screen name. Again, we all know you're experts at this, but again, doesn't hurt to remind you all. So I'll leave that here for a few more seconds. If you do need support, you can always ask, again, Hardering Company or the Air District, and we are more than happy to rename you. Some virtual meeting etiquette, please stay on mute unless you are speaking or planning to speak, and you can use *6 if participating by phone. Please raise your Zoom hand to ask a question during a presentation Q&A, and you can use *9 if you're participating by phone. I do see a question in the chat, and we'll get to you, Mary Elizabeth, once we're done going through the housekeeping items. Residents in the stipend program should stay for at least 75% of the meeting to be eligible for a stipend. That's 90 minutes of a 2-hour meeting. And please state your name before sharing a comment to allow for smooth interpretation of our conversation. In order to have a productive discussion and respectful dialogue, we ask that you help achieve the meeting goals by focusing on solutions, opportunities, and productive dialogue, by letting everyone participate, by stepping up and then stepping back. Being civil and respectful, it's okay to disagree, but please be respectful, empathetic, and civil. Stay on point on time. Please keep comments brief and to the point. This will allow enough time for everyone to participate. We will also attack the problem, not the person, by respectfully challenging ideas or outcomes, never attacking the person, and honoring every person's humanity and dignity. and we will seek common ground by building consensus and finding shared values that will help achieve the best results. Our agenda for today, we are currently in welcome and introductions. We will move on to reviewing the action item and tracker, and then we will get to the meat of our conversation, which is building consensus, residential lawn and garden discussion, urban greening and vegetative barriers update, and then we will do our regular standing updates, wrap up next steps, and public comment. I will stop sharing my screen. All right, let me reorient myself. All right. Yeah, I think with that, that's all our housekeeping for today. So we'll pass it to Sarah from the Air District for welcoming remarks. And as a friendly reminder, we welcomed Sarah to our community last month. So we are so excited to hear from Sarah during this meeting.
Thank you, Laura. This is Sarah. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I have recently stepped in to be the manager over the AB617 program with Stephanie here at the district. I've actually worked at the district for over 9 years now. So I was previously a supervisor in the grants department. And some of you all may recognize me as I've been in several CSC meetings, but as grants support. So now I'm on the AB617 side. I'm excited to get to know you all and to get to know more about the community and the CSC priorities. And I just want to say thank you to the residents who helped us with our agenda topics that we will present tonight, along with Little Manila Rising for joining us as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, welcome to Stockton. At this point, we can go ahead and transition our conversation to reviewing the action items tracker. As a reminder, we'll spend a few moments reviewing this tracker, and this is a tool that we use to help develop transparency and accountability between you, the CSC, and the Air District. So the Air District continuously monitors the action items tracker and updates it to be able to provide you with most up-to-date progress. So we encourage you all to ask questions, and as Rocio provides updates, yeah, just feel free to ask for any clarifications. So we'll pass it to Rocio.
Thank you, Laura. Hi, everyone. This is Rocio. Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can get started with the action items. Can folks see my screen? Head nods. Thank you. So today we have 3 action items to review from the last CSC meeting. So I'll go ahead and start off with the ones in the pending section. So the first action item, there was a request in the last meeting to share updates on how the passenger vehicle replacement program is doing. And so we'll go ahead and follow up with this and share updates with the CSC in August. And moving on to the next action item, we did have Wes from Kingsburg Truck Center at the last CSC meeting, and he went ahead and shared updates about the heavy duty trucks. And so he was very well received by the community, and we will make sure to invite him to return to future CSC meetings to continue sharing updates with the CSC. And then going back, and we're going to go ahead and move to the completed section. And so we have one right here. And again, at the last CSC meeting, there was a request to share more information about DPR and their pesticide monitoring efforts. So we went ahead and included a link right here for folks to click on, just so if you guys want to read on this, and it shares more information about pesticide monitoring efforts from DPR. And it was just 3 action items today, but I'm happy to pause here to see if anyone has any questions. I don't see any hands raised, but I'm happy to take any questions throughout today's meeting, or feel free to reach out to me after as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocio, for providing us with those updates. This is Laura. I'm also not seeing any hands raised or anything in the chat. I do see Mary Elizabeth, you had a comment, you had a question, what would be necessary to reallocate funds for resident e-bikes? And I think during this next update, we can definitely answer that question. So with that, I will transition us, excuse me, to our next agenda item. And I'll just give it another quick second, see if there's any last minute questions. Don't see anything. All right. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to be spending a good amount of time during the residential lawn and garden discussion. And during this time, we will be receiving a high-level SERP incentives measure progress review that will help inform our residential lawn and garden conversation. And as many of you remember, during May's meeting, CSC members elevated the idea of a possible funding reallocation shift to the residential lawn and garden SERP measure, given that residents take advantage of the program and given that during the last reallocation, the funds seem to be spending. You all seem to be taking very well advantage of that. So today, the Air District proposes to reallocate $350,000 in funds from the diesel switcher locomotives to residential lawn and garden to support an additional 700 lawnmowers to continue maximizing the number of households who get a new lawnmower and hosting additional lawnmower distribution events in Stockton. At the end of this presentation, we'd like to gauge where the CSC is at and understand any questions or concerns coming up for you all around reallocation of funding. And we are looking to build consensus, but if there is no consensus around this reallocation of funds, we will move into a formal vote and we will go through that process with you on what it means to build consensus and what it means to go into the vote. So while the Air District is presenting, please let us know what's coming up for you. If there's any questions, concerns, or general reflections, we definitely love to hear that. But with that, I will now pass it to Sarah, and she will be presenting on this update.
Thank you, Laura. Let me share my screen here. All right. So like Laura mentioned, we'll be talking about just some high-level budget items. I will pause for any questions that you may have, and then we'll go into the residential lawn and garden reallocation discussion. In the last meeting, and then since the last meeting when we've been talking to residents, we did get some feedback that residents wanted to see where we stand overall with our overall SERP commitments and our overall budget. And we did hear that since the last lawnmower event filled up fairly quickly, that some residents were interested in doing an additional lawnmower event. So I will get started. So these slides may look familiar as we've shared a version of these slides before. We broke up the slides by different kind of measures. So we have residential measures, business measures, and community measures. So I'll start us off discussing some of the progress that we have made on our residential measures. These measures are those that you all can take advantage of, like the residential lawn and garden or vehicle programs like the vehicle replacement program, vehicle repair programs. As you can see, we have been making progress with these measures. Specifically, like we stated, the lawn and garden measure is fully committed. The car share program is also committed as we have already contracted with the Housing Authority for that measure. We do have that joint lawn and garden and tune-in tune-up event on June 28th. And once that event passes, we will see some progress in the tune-in tune-up vehicle replacement program. So I know there is $300,000 that we still have in that measure, but we do have that event scheduled in June. So we will see some progress after that. For the residential air filtration measure, we have over half of the funding left. So we have over $600,000 left in that measure. about a month or two ago, we sent out 21,000 postcards to AB617 Stockton residents to try to promote the program, and we are just, continuing to do outreach to get purifiers out to folks in the community. So we're still working on that measure. In regards to the last measure listed, the passenger vehicle replacement program, if you all remember, about 2 months ago or a couple months ago, we reallocated an additional $4 million for that program. So that program just reopened again. We had to close it down as we ran out of funding, but then we reallocated money so that program reopened. So we will start seeing some progress on that measure moving forward as well. So overall, we're doing pretty good with our residential measures. Moving on to our business measures. This slide goes over measures that businesses can take advantage of, and that's businesses within the boundary. We have committed all of the funding that we have allocated for the heavy duty electric vehicle charging infrastructure measure. As you can see, we do have quite a bit of funding on the diesel switch car locomotive measure and the heavy duty replacement measure, heavy duty truck replacement measure. This year for diesel switch car locomotives, CARB is looking to make updates on some of the locomotive regulations. We're hoping that that will lead to an increase in incentive amounts. As of right now, the diesel switch car locomotive incentive is quite low. So we don't have anyone taking advantage of this measure, but we are hoping that that does change hopefully this year. For heavy duty truck replacement, we had Wes from Kingsburg Trucking come in and give us an update. He is very motivated to find some businesses or some entities to take advantage of this program. So he's been doing a lot of outreach to entities in the boundaries to find some projects that can fit for this measure. Since our last CSC meeting, he actually did meet with Stockton Unified School District and just, to talk about some of their options on how they can take advantage on switching out some of their large heavy duty trucks. So we're hoping that that moves some of the money forward. Okay. So this slide is talks about the community measures. As you can see, we have 4 measures where all of the funding has been allocated or committed. Specifically, the bike path infrastructure project, we have already contracted with the city of Stockton. We're also contracted with Little Manila Rising with the urban greening and vegetative barrier measures, and we will actually hear an update on those 2 measures later on in this meeting. Moving back up to the commercial lawn and garden, we are also fully contracted with in that measure with Stockton Unified School District. They did commit to that funding already. As for the school bus replacement program measure, Stockton Unified School District is awaiting the delivery of 10 school buses. There were some delays as their manufacturer was located in an area where there was some extreme weather. So we are hoping that they get those buses soon. And then we were going to talk to them about possibly taking advantage of the remaining $1.2 million that are left in the measure. When we spoke with them last, they did want to receive their 10 buses that they had on order and kind of test out how the electric school buses run, kind of see how they work with their commutes and drivers. So hopefully once they get those 10 school buses and test them out, they can make a decision on if they do want to take advantage of that remaining funding. Okay, now moving on to project timeframes and SERP timeframes. So as a request from some of the CSC members, we wanted to provide you all with a timeline on what to expect this year and next year before our SERP deadline of July 2026. As for this year, our goal was to contract our community projects in the first quarter of the year. So these projects include the vegetative barriers and urban greening projects that we have contracted with Little Manila Rising. We have to create project plans and plant trees throughout the communities. So we did want to contract these well before July 2026, just to give us enough time to fully complete the measure before the end of the SERP deadline. Let's see. And here's our timeline for 2026. So next year, our goal is to contract heavy duty projects, and that includes like school bus projects and heavy duty trucks more towards the beginning of the year. It does take time to fulfill the truck orders, to complete the projects, get them ordered, built, and delivered. So we want to make sure that we contract those as early as possible so that the projects can be delivered and complete before the July 2026 deadline. As for residential projects, we moved them, closer to the SERP deadline. Residential projects include lawn and garden, or residential lawn and garden, the fireplace replacement programs, even our vehicle programs such as the vehicle replacement program and the vehicle repair program. These are faster projects with a quicker turnaround. They have a more immediate delivery. So we can, contract those projects up to the SERP deadline. Let's see here. One last thing I wanted to add is that overall, we do have the benefit of working with other AB617 communities like Shafter and Fresno that have already reached their 5th year with us. So we do anticipate that there can be some flexibility with using the funds that have already been committed to the community past the July 2026 deadline. Yeah, at this time, I'll pause and answer any questions before I move on to the residential lawn and garden reallocation discussion.
Thank you, Sarah. This is Laura. I did see before you started presenting that Debbie had her hand raised. So Debbie, wondering if your question was answered or if you still have your question. Trying to find you on my screen.
Actually, I think it's more towards the tree and urban greening.
Okay.
So yeah. So I'll just wait till then. Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you, Debbie.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course. Mary Elizabeth, I do see your hand raised, and I do see you posted some questions in the chat. So feel free to unmute yourself and elevate those questions that you had in the chat as well.
Hello, Mary Elizabeth. I was wondering about the EV mechanic program and if that's something that we can donate the money to Delta for student scholarships.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, for that question. And I'm so glad you asked that because Sarah and I were just talking about the EV mechanic training measure today and just what opportunities there are. As I think a lot of folks are aware because there was a really long process, and I know he's not in this meeting, but Taylor Williams was super instrumental in kind of working with us on a few different pathways that we did follow, including reaching out to some folks at Delta College, including reaching out to some folks at the San Joaquin County Office of Education. At that time, we weren't able to get any interest in kind of working on this funding, but I do think that was a couple years ago. And so Sarah and I actually, it's on our list and something we're going to follow up with is to reach out to some of those folks that we tried a couple years ago to re-engage them on the EV mechanic training topic. And we can include Delta and College in that. Include Valley Clean Air Now that I know also runs an EV mechanic training program, and follow up on that measure. So thank you, Mary, for bringing that up.
Would it be okay if I just follow up a bit?
Yeah, please.
So I'm wondering if you can also open it up to commercial mechanic shops that may have some mechanics that would like to get trained to work on EV. Scholarships for them, not just, students, but, people that are looking to improve their career outcomes, please.
This is Stephanie. I do believe those folks would be eligible as well, so we can follow up also. And I did mention a couple of schools, but to your point, Mary, I do think that it is folks that are just interested in learning, taking an EV mechanic course or just, starting up that type of course. It doesn't necessarily have to be a student, I believe, to your point, but we'll follow up on those guidelines. And if should that be allowable, then that's also a group that we can definitely reach out to as well. I also, while I had a moment, I thought maybe I could follow up on a couple of questions that I see posed in the chat that I'll just read aloud regarding California. I'll start my way from the bottom up. Just about California Traction Company, which I think Mary is remembering with our locomotives measure. California Traction was interested in, or where they're kind of at right now is they are testing out a new technology to see whether or not it fits for their operations. So I don't know that they've necessarily kind of fully backed out, but they are still testing technology. And I think to some of Kyle's points about kind of the changes in regulation, I think that also brought a little bit of uncertainty, but they're certainly on the top of our list for us to, as the regulation changes, which I know that I think Kyle said you're still following up. I believe that this is something that's going to CARB's board in June, and I'll let Kyle correct me if I'm wrong there. So these are things that are happening really soon here. So we are hoping that, again, as Kyle kind of echoed in the chat, and I appreciate Kyle for confirming this, is as we see changes in the regulation, we're likely to see, we expect that there are probably going to be more folks, including California Traction, that could also become still interested in applying for those funds. And I'm going to work my way up, and I see one other question about what would be necessary to reallocate funds for residents and for e-bikes. I mean, as you all know, we do have a SERP that you all helped put together, and that's kind of been our guiding document for when we are going about in the community and how we spend these funds. Another resource that we do have is actually through CARB. They put out guidelines of where we can spend this community air protection funding. And so, Kyle, not to put you on the spot, and maybe this is something you can follow up with us about, but is there anything in the CAP guidelines and any of the revisions that talks, is there a chapter on e-bikes? Maybe I caught Kyle at a bad time, but that's maybe just as a response to that, Mary, that's something that we can follow up with Carbon of just kind of what's allowable to spend, the types of measures that's kind of allowable to spend through this. That kind of community air protection guideline that I just mentioned is what lays out kind of those guidelines for us as air districts. So we can certainly follow up with Kyle about that. And I think a lot of folks are aware because we've been sending emails about it, but I know that the state is also piloting a e-bike program. It's been highly popular, and that's maybe, Mary, where what sparked the idea. But I know that there are also efforts that CARB is undertaking to get this funding out, e-bike funding for e-bikes out generally to residents throughout all of California.
You whoopsie daisy. Sorry, everybody. I said a whole bunch of stuff while muted. So there is no kind of ready to go category in our CAP incentives guidelines for e-bikes specifically. That being said, there is the ever present option of creating a bespoke new kind of incentive project or program through our community identified projects chapter. Not that I'm saying that may be the best way to go, as that can end up being a lot of work, as I know a lot of folks in Stockton are well aware of, especially a lot of the SJV folks that have worked on developing those plans over the years. But there is always a potential option there. But yeah, there's the California statewide e-bike program that Stephanie mentioned as well. So there may be some connection points to consider there.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. This is Laura for reading those questions. I also see a recommendation from Mary Elizabeth. When the AD goes out to an event where they will have a filter to see and sign up, please post those events on Nextdoor. Just maximizing outreach. Thank you, Mary Elizabeth. Right, before we transition the conversation to residential lawn and garden, are there any other questions for Sarah and the Air District around funding? Right, I don't see anything in the chat or any questions or any hands raised. I think we can go ahead. Oh, Bobby and Jazz Marie.
Hi, this is Jazz Marie. I just wanted to clarify what was said about if the measure isn't spent down, then like Shafter and some of the other communities who have been able to continue to spend down after the their funding ended. Is that correct?
This is Stephanie. Thank you so much, Jazzy, for bringing that up because I do, yeah, to clarify and just make clear to everyone. Like Sarah mentioned, we have the benefit, or we all collectively here now in Stockton and some of our later communities, we have that benefit of we have this experience that we get to gain from Shafter and Fresno. And just to let committee members know, I just want to convey to you all that once we get to July, you should expect that we're not just going to be like, bye, and disappear from your lives forever. We'll still be here and we'll still be, if should it be the case that there are especially like those residential measures, some of those measures, like we just made the funding reallocation for the vehicle replacement program. That just happened just a couple months ago, and that funding just became available to us. So I just want to make aware to you all that that's, for the commitments that we've made in the SERP, we are still interested in helping the committee finish out those as best we can. And so we're anticipating, even if we don't quite, we get to July of 2026 and there's still measures that we haven't quite completed, we do foresee still continuing to work with you all and being, in the community and even past that July 2026 timeframe.
This is Laura. Yeah, thank you, Jasmine, for that question. I'll take another pause here and see if there are any other questions before we transition our conversation to lawn and garden. Okay. Sarah, we'll pass it back to you.
Thank you, Laura. This is Sarah. Let me share my screen here. All right. To get us started, I wanted to talk about the current status of this measure. The purpose of this measure is to replace gas-powered mowers with electric mowers, really at no cost to the Stockton AB617 residents. Currently, we have $320,000 allocated for this measure in the SERP, which we estimated would replace about 650 mowers. Right now, we have already replaced 230 mowers, and we have another 549 mowers reserved for the Stockton residents for our June 28th event. So once we are done with our June 28th event, there will not be any more funding available to replace the gas mowers with electric mowers. Residents would have to then go through our standard valley-wide program, which offers an incentive, though it is a lower incentive amount. There are a lot of emission impacts when we think about lawnmowers. People use them at their homes, around their children, And we do know that 1 hour of lawnmower use is equivalent to driving from LA to Las Vegas in a vehicle. The CSC has supported various funding reallocations to in-need measures, such as the shifts that you see on this slide. Most recently, we shifted $4 million to support the passenger vehicle replacement program. We did shift 2 million at one point and then additional 4 million. That's why you see it's listed as 6 million on this slide. We are definitely committed to working with you all to identify the measures with little to no interest and move the money to more popular measures, measures that are being taken advantage of more by the residents and that are in need as needed and as we hear the interest from the community members. And as I was talking about this earlier, we currently have $6.6 million in the diesel switch car locomotives measure. As I stated earlier, there is a limit on the funding that we can provide to the entities that want to switch to a cleaner alternative. We are hoping that CARB will revisit the locomotive regulation in June, so hopefully this month, and that could possibly change some of the funding amounts that we can offer to businesses seeking to replace their diesel units. But for now, we did hear that community members were interested in a second lawnmower event sometime possibly in the fall, as the reservations for the June 28th event filled up in a little over a week. I think it was like 9 days. It was open and then it was completely full. So for now, we are proposing to move some of the funds, about over $300,000 of the funds, from diesel locomotives to the lawnmower measure. And here are some nice photos. These are actually from our event in May 2024. This event, we actually exchanged 155 mowers. Thank you to all of the community members that came out and that have already replaced their mowers. We really do think that this program is successful and allows folks to easily exchange their mower with a cleaner, electric mower. These in-person events also reduce barriers to participate in the program. They're a one-stop shop. They allow folks to come in, drop off their old mower for dismantling, receive a new mower on the same day without any out-of-pocket cost. So the traditional program is a little bit different. We don't have these events for the folks who go through the traditional program. For the traditional program, you go out to buy your new electric mower, then take your old mower to a dismantling facility and receive an authorization form from the dismantling facility that it has been dismantled, and then submit for a reimbursement from the district. So there is some like out of pocket, and then the traditional program doesn't cover the full cost of the program like these lawnmower events do. So they are very well received, and folks are quite happy at the end of the day when they get their mower. And I think you guys have, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen this slide before with the green and blue boxes. Overall, it's our commitment to you all and to the CSC to reallocate funds to in-need measures. We have done previous reallocations for commercial lawn and garden, commercial lawn and garden to support Stockton Unified. And then we recently reallocated the $4 million to the passenger vehicle replacement program just a couple months ago. As you can see, we have the $6.6 million for the diesel switch car locomotives. And per the CSC residents' recommendation, we're proposing to reallocate $350,000 of the $6.6 million to the residential lawn and garden measure today. So with the reallocation of the $350,000, it would allow us to fund at least 700 mowers in the community. And more importantly, it would allow us to do an additional event in the community around the fall. If we are not ready to move the funding today, we will still have the June 28th event. And we still funded those 230 mowers that went through a more traditional route, but no additional mowers or events will be funded. Yes. I will take any questions.
This is Laura.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, for taking us through that slide or those slides. I want to go back to Debbie. I know, Debbie, you said you had a question around lawn and garden. So want to make sure if it wasn't answered for you to ask your question. And then we can go to Regina and then Gloria. All right. Debbie, I see you have a thumbs up. Does that mean that your question was answered throughout the presentation?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you.
All right. Regina, see your hand raised.
Thank you. I'm really happy about the success of the lawnmower program. But I'm interested in knowing more about the maintenance of the trees that were planted in the urban greening section. And I'm wondering, can you elaborate on the possibility of allocating funds to maintain the trees that were planted?
This is Stephanie. I so appreciate that question, Regina. And we actually have Little Manila and I think a couple folks from Little Manila Rising to give us a whole update on urban greening and vegetative barriers right after this, if that sounds good.
Okay, and I'm sure, if I'm not mistaken, they did get the contract last time, and it was quite a bit of monies, but that's one of the reasons why I'm concerned that the maintenance wasn't included in that, and so I'm really interested in knowing how we can alleviate that problem, because I've seen the trees myself, not doing so well, and I think it's a total waste if we spend the money to go out and plant them and then let them die. And so that's just my point of view.
Thank you, Regina. And this is Stephanie. That is such an important concern. And I just want to clarify, there is certainly funding in the proposal that Little Manila has for maintenance. That's actually a requirement that we set forth in the request for proposal when we were finding people to plant the trees. So maintenance is certainly a part of the funding and what they are receiving funding to maintain and expected to maintain in working with whatever partners that they are planning on working with to make sure that the trees stay alive, because that's very important. I did get a little preview of their presentation. So they're going to talk a little bit about the maintenance too as part of their update and their plans for that. So I promise, Regina, we're going to get to the urban greening and vegetative barrier update in just a little bit here. And as a part of that, I'm sure that Nico will definitely talk about the maintenance as well.
This is Laura. Yeah, thank you, Regina, for that question. And we'll make sure to circle back with you if your question wasn't answered after the presentation for urban greening and vegetative barriers. But hopefully it's answered then. And Gloria, I saw you had your hand raised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you put the presentation slides up again?
Yeah, do you have a particular slide that you'd like for Sarah to go to?
The last slide that you showed. Okay. Yeah, that one. So I was just wondering, on average, do you distribute this number of lawnmowers during every single event? And to put it in other words, I guess, it sounds like you're hoping to have only one in-person event, and you have 549 lawnmowers that will be distributed during that event. And the reason why I'm asking if you distribute that entire amount during only one event is because I'm trying to figure out if allocating this new funding to this measure will actually necessitate several events and not just one in-person event.
This is Stephanie. Thanks, Gloria, for that question. With the reallocation that we are proposing, what this would be is one event and a buffer of additional units. We would probably do, so for this event that Sarah had talked about, the one that we have on June 28th, it's about 500 and a few more, maybe I think 540. And Nia, feel free to jump in because I think you know that number better than I do. But that's probably about the max that Valley Clean Air could do an event. It's a lot of mowers. When we, just as a little bit of background, we, as like the Valley Air District team and staff, we were the ones that first like kicked off the original events, and it's a lot to put on. And we did anywhere from the range of like 100 and 200 mowers at an event. So it's very, very amazing, in my opinion, that we can get all the way up to 500 in a very efficient event. But to your point, Gloria, it will be one event and a buffer. So if after the event, what we could anticipate is maybe people hear about it from their neighbor, hear about it from a friend, and they're like, oh man, I missed the event, but I still want to participate. We will have a buffer after that event to take on more applications in case folks in the community hear about the event. And I will even say, I know Sarah mentioned it, but I'll just re-emphasize for folks that, you know, even right now with the hold that we have kind of money set aside to allow us to complete that June event. But even now we're getting applications through the door. So there's already people that, you know, that are interested in the program even outside of the event. So we are anticipating an event plus being able to support additional residents that could be interested now or after that event that happens like in the fall.
I have a follow-up question. If we were to say yes to this funding reallocation, I am interested in having a conditional approval. And this is me also like thinking about how to maximize the participation of residents in these in-person events. But to get back to my point, my conditional approval will be to try to have 2 events and not just one. But that's the reason behind asking this question. And thank you for describing those logistical aspects, Stephanie. That's it.
This is Laura. Yeah, thank you for your question, Gloria, and that clarification, Stephanie. Everett and then Jeff, we see your hands raised.
Yeah, I'm trying to, yes, this is Everett. I have one question for clarification. The event we had last year, and there, I just wanted some clarification. There was supposed to be come back to pick up another battery for the lawnmower at that particular location we had on Fremont Street. And will they be giving away batteries again, extra batteries for the lawnmowers? And because I was in the hospital, I don't know how that turned out, or are we doing that, or will we be doing that, the extra batteries? Because the batteries go out quick. So that was my question.
Hi, this is Nia with the Valley Air District. Everett, for your question there, last year we did have an additional battery. The expectation is that this year there will be 2, but I will double check on that, confirm, and let Sarah and Stephanie know what they can confirm with you guys. The community is good.
This is Laura. Sounds great. We'll write that down as an action item for the Air District, Nia. Right, Jeff, and then Margot.
Hi, I was sorry, I was multitasking and I might have missed it, but were there any short line railroads that were interested in changing out their locomotives? Or I don't know if I remember an update, so I was just hoping to get clarification.
This is Stephanie. I do believe CCT has been interested, but I can have the manager over that program, Jeff, reach out to you directly if you want to chat with him a little bit more about that.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to facilitate some stuff, but yeah.
My understanding, CCT has been testing out some new technology that required some certification in order to take advantage of some of that incentive funding too. So they've been testing that technology out. And so, yeah, I can have one of the manager over that program, Jeff, reach out to you.
All right. Good. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Oh, this is Laura. Margot, I do see your hand raised. And after Margot, if Sarah, you wouldn't mind putting up the screen again and going through the options of what reallocation means. There are no other questions, but Margot, go ahead.
I'd just like to say I really appreciate Gloria bringing up the idea of more than just this one event. I mean, we have the June event and then you're planning a fall event. Could we ask Valley Can if they might, what could they accommodate in terms of frequency of these events? I think we're going to have money that we're going to look at wanting to transfer and want to make it happen so it stays in the community with our deadlines coming up. So just maybe check with Valley Can. Okay.
This is Stephanie. I'm glad you said that, Margot, because I did want to follow up with what Gloria said. I love the idea of more events. I'll just say this is Stephanie. I personally love these events. I've had a chance to go out to these events across the community and I've seen the success of them. So definitely I appreciate that sentiment. I will say just for this funding reallocation that we are proposing, that should get us about 700 units. It will likely just cover one event. Just in terms of, I think, the production of what one of these events are, it takes a lot of work and time to put these events together. So it doesn't really make sense for us to like taper down and do fewer units than Valley can do in the event. It really makes sense for us to maximize it. That way they're not, wasting kind of their time and their money to put on such a big event and only do like 300 mowers when we know they can do 500 at an event. But what I can say is that what we can plan to do with you all is have that conversation with Valley Can, Margot, like you suggested, and then we can bring back this opportunity to the CSC when we get to that next event. Because right now we'll have the June event covered. This reallocation will allow us to do one other event that will take us through the end of the year. So we can certainly continue to work with you all on another reallocation if that's something that's interesting. But I would just hate to cut this $350K into 2 events because I actually think that it's, we know Valley Can do about 500 in an event, and it really makes sense for us to maximize resources and time to do the max that they can do in an event with the funding. But on top of that, I love the idea of doing another event if possible. So I just want to let you all know that that's an opportunity that we can have. And at the very least right now, this reallocation will allow us to do something else in the fall. And we still have the June event happening during the summer too. So this is a decision that we can continue to work with you on. That way we're ready preemptively for next year.
Yeah, I don't think I was suggesting fewer items. I think I was suggesting more events.
Perfect.
And I know it's a lot of work to go through, but kind of see what their capacity is. Because we could be reallocating more money to it.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Margot.
This is Laura. Yeah, thank you, Margot, for that question. Everett, I see your hand raised.
It was just a question as we are coming down and we're coming down, and I'm just trying to figure: are we? Is this a question that maybe I should be asked even now? But are we starting to negotiate or for funding, or are having problems with funding? Is there anything that we can do to help to assist in where because we're winding down, but is there a reason why we're winding down? And I just wanted to know what we can do as residents and to help to facilitate the monies coming back in so that we can continue to do the projects that we need to be done.
Thanks, Everett. This is Stephanie. And maybe I'll just quickly refresh everyone's memory, because I think this is an important question that Everett's bringing up of just, I think this gets to also a couple of questions we heard from CSC members as we were prepping this, this meeting of wanting to understand what's going on with the budget. Kind of, Everett, to get to your question, as it's kind of defined by the state and kind of the guidance that comes down from CARB about this program, SERPs are kind of a 5-year time frame. And so the date in which our Stockton SERP was approved by CARB, 5 years from that will take us to July of 2026. And so that's kind of maybe what you're hearing about some of these making decisions kind of by that time frame. And so I think to your question of what we can do, I think the conversation we're having right now is exactly what you all can do. Working with us to strategically move money where we see measures that really have the demand and where we can continue to get funding out into the community. So I will say that, but I also just on the other side of that, just want to let CSC members know, like I mentioned earlier, even when we do hit July of 2026, I just want you all to know that it's not that when we hit that date, all the money that the Stockton committee, committed in the SERP is just going to, disappear. We are still committed to working with you all as we can. And I know CARB shares that same commitment of trying to work with you all to complete the commitments that we made in the SERP. I hope that answers your question, Everett, but let me know if you have any follow-up.
We're good. I think we're good, and we just we go from there and we follow as we're led.
Thanks,
This is
Everett.
Laura. Oh, yeah, go for it, Sarah. I was just going to turn it to you.
I was going to share my screen here. Okay, and just to, excuse me, summarize, this slide gives us, the two options. To move forward and move $350,000 from the $6.6 million pot of funding that we had reserved for diesel switch car locomotives. That would get us another event in the community and at least 700 mowers. And if we're not ready to move that money at this time, we will continue with the June 26th event, but no additional mowers or events will be funded beyond that.
Do we need a motion to go along with for a vote? I'm ready to vote.
Yeah, great question, Everett. This is Laura. So at this time, we will go into our consensus deliberation. So let me share my screen. All right. Can you all see my screen? Yes, all right. So deliberation and consensus / voting. I'll quickly go through this. So all CSC members are eligible to participate in this consensus voting process. Achieving full consensus may not always be possible. So a majority vote, 50% plus 1 of all community steering committee members present at the time of vote will be taken. CSC members shall be present for voting. No absentee voting is permitted. If a primary member is unable to attend, the designated alternate on the CSC roster may deliberate in the consensus voting process. And we are doing our best efforts to capture all perspectives on our side. So in order to achieve consensus, we will ask eligible voting CSC members if anyone would like to state their opposition to the proposal. If the majority of eligible CSC members are in favor, we will not send members into a breakout room for a formal vote, and we will also take note of any opposition for further inquiry. So at this time, I will stop sharing my screen, and we would like to ask the CSC if there is any opposition for reallocating funds to please state your opposition. Mary Elizabeth, I see your hand raised. Is that you stating your opposition?
I think, didn't you want to hear what I had to say or just state my opposition?
If you have an opposition, yes, state if you are opposed.
Yes.
Okay. So we have one.
Can we hear her rationale if she would just share?
Go for it, Mary Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just that locomotive switcher would just reduce so much air pollution that I just like to keep it in there for just a couple more times because it sounds like that outreach there had kind of with the company had kind of slipped down, and then now there's going to be some other talks with the port, and I just like to see if there's some other place where money can come from for that. And I disagree wholeheartedly, on really the impact that lawnmowers have on air quality. It's seasonal, right? So, the lawns are generally in Stockton, not mowed all year long. And, I just really think that there's so many folks that are hustling to make money uh, cutting people's lawns that fewer and fewer people are cutting their own lawns. I mean, I'm just saying. And if it was going for commercial, or for somebody that wanted to start a business, cutting lawns, I'd be for it. But just for something that could sit in the garage or sit in the back, and not be used, I'm not so in favor of. That's my rationale, Margot.
This is Laura. Thank you, Mary Elizabeth, for sharing. I do see a question in the chat from Gloria. What would it require for the locomotive option to move forward?
This is Stephanie. Just some information just about kind of the participation. Really all of our incentive measures, including the lawn and garden measure, but especially the ones that are kind of require huge investments from businesses, they are incentive based, and they really just are voluntary incentives. So it takes someone stepping up to participate. So far in kind of now the 4 years that we've been running the SERP, we haven't had anyone take advantage of the measure. And I will just say, just to maybe put folks' mind at ease, there will still, after this allocation, be $6 million still for locomotives, which is a good pot of funding. Really, in comparison, the residential lawn and garden measure, a lawnmower versus a locomotive unit that's a big price difference. So for us to have an impact on, say, at least 700 people's lives, maybe the emissions are smaller. We are able to kind of impact a lot of folks through that measure. But it will also, though, be only just a portion of the funding. Again, we'll still have $6 million for the district to still, work with these businesses. And I just want to guarantee to Mary that we're still, like I said earlier, seeking opportunities with this measure. It's not like we move this funding and locomotives won't happen. We still have a good chunk of funding in the SERP allocated to this that will still be able to move forward with it should a business step up and say that they want to switch out their unit.
What is the time frame on that as far as the money the finances ending?
This is Stephanie. Sarah mentioned a couple of those deadlines. I'd have to follow up more specifically, but generally overall with those heavy duty type measures, we do want to try and contract kind of through the beginning of next year. Now, some of those deadlines could be flexible. I will just share that, the district and CARB are all invested in making these projects happen. So it is important for us to start thinking about where funding, we want to still make sure that we're thinking and have the mindset of getting these immediate, this funding out to community. So we will have some flexibility kind of with that, but I think that's the time frame, Everett, of generally to keep in mind, as we are generally kind of keeping in mind that July 2026 timeframe, but we will still have flexibility, I think, beyond that. And I'd have to talk to some of our finance teams a little more closely to see like what exactly is like a drop dead deadline. But we do, I think now I will say it's a good time for us to start this time and kind of within this next year that we're still implementing the SERP, starting to think about opportunities that we can still spend this funding and get this funding out to the community.
This is Laura. Thank you, Stephanie and Everett, for that question. Mary Elizabeth, I still see your hand raised. Is that from your previous question? Okay. All right. So Mary Elizabeth stated her opposition. Once again, we would like to ask if there's anyone who has opposition to reallocating the $350,000 from diesel switcher locomotives to residential lawn and garden. Margot, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, this is just a question for Stephanie or for whomever. So we have $6+ million for the locomotive sitting. We're looking to move a small 350,000 to lawnmowers now. Come July 2026, if there's still $6 million sitting in the locomotive, and you said sometimes the effort to complete these SERPs goes on afterwards, will there still be that effort there? Will there still be the opportunity to move money to lawnmowers? Will we still be able to have lawnmower events? What ends in July of 2026?
This is Stephanie. Yeah, that's a great question. I will say, just from our experience of kind of working with some of the other committees, I will say already, I'll have to talk to our finance and grants teams about this, but we as the funding comes through to us, there are liquidation deadlines associated with them. I don't know all of them off the top of my head. We will, as we've kind of seen in other communities, we are trying our best to wrap up the SERP and the commitments in the SERP by that July 2026 timeframe. And I'd have to check in with our team a little bit more closely about kind of, again, those drop dead deadlines. I will say locomotives are something that do take a little bit of time, as do trucks and as do some of the more heavy duty measures, kind of based on their delivery, their purchase, the contracting for it. Is it possible for us to still do a lawn and garden event kind of, next July? I don't think that's out of the question, but I will say I think this is right now. I would not encourage the CSC to wait on these types of things, because I think, like I had mentioned, I think a lot of folks are in this call are aware. There's lots of, I think, time sensitivity just generally around AB617 funding in general. So I think it's of the interest of the CSC to make decisions, soon, so that we can get this funding out. I don't exactly have like a drop dead, like all of this funding is going to leave tomorrow, because the way that the funding comes to us, there's different liquidation deadlines associated with it. So that's why I'm trying to let the CSC know of like this July of 2026 timeframe is a good idea to keep in mind of when we want to wrap up and achieve, try and complete some of these measures, or, really a majority of these measures. But I think generally what I'd like to convey to you all is that I don't think it's in the interest of the CSC to wait. I wouldn't say that this is a good measure for us to wait until next year to decide, because this is something that we can do now as a committee to take advantage of the funding and get this funding out to community members. Because there's no guarantee. We're going to keep trying, but we can't compel anyone to take advantage of the locomotive funding. It really is a voluntary program and a voluntary incentive funding. So there's really no way for us to, make someone apply to the funding. It really is just based on folks taking advantage of that funding. So Margot, and to your question, I think it will just have to continue working with the CSC as well. I think this is a little bit of uncharted territory of what's going to happen with locomotives for this measure. Kind of after this, after that funding, we'll have to continue working with you all. We'll have to continue working with CARB about kind of what it looks like, post 5th year. But I'll just generally share that, and from our perspective of wanting to get this funding out to community members, I think it's an important time for us to start thinking about where we can bring immediate benefits to the CSC and to the whole community in Stockton.
And I did not mean to imply that, I just want to say, I envision us having $6 million in this SERP sitting there at the end of our time and losing it. I see it as use it or lose it, and I see us losing it.
Yeah. And thanks, Margo.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we can't afford to drop the ball on that.
This is Laura. Yeah, thank you, Margo, for that question. I do see that we have 2 people who opposed. I don't see anybody else opposing. I'll take another quick second. Okay. So per your charter, the slides that we went through earlier, and I'll put them up on the screen again. I think you all can see that. A majority vote, 50% plus one, so 51% of all CSC members present at the time or designated alternates in attendance will be taken. So this means that we will move forward with reallocating the $350,000 from locomotives to the lawn and garden measure. Awesome. Well, thank you all for that conversation. I do see Gloria posted in the chat if we can get an outline of liquidation deadlines to inform urgency in which the CSC should be acting this year. So I'll pass that to the Air District, and then we can move forward with our agenda.
Yeah, this is Stephanie. I definitely think this type of like budget conversation is going to be especially like crucial as we're getting, kind of getting to this, the 5th year milestone. So we can certainly follow up with some additional kind of like budget and timeframe information for the CSC to help us kind of consider as we're thinking about some of these reallocations.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I think we can transition into our next agenda item, which is the urban greening and vegetative barriers update. So I'll pass it to my colleague, Jared.
So before we go on, let me just clarify, we did make the decision, right?
That's right, Margot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. This is Jared speaking. Thank you all so much for that engaging discussion, especially the attention to detail and asking questions. I think it really just shows how much you all care about the Stockton community. And I'm excited to be a part and watch as this funding is reallocated. During this next portion of tonight's meeting, Little Manila Rising is going to be presenting updates about 2 different projects, urban greening and vegetative barriers. In October of last year, the CSC gave Little Manila Rising their full support for them to implement their proposed plans for both projects. During April's in-person CSC meeting, Little Manila joined us to answer any questions that the CSC had. We know that not everyone was able to make our in-person meeting, and today Little Manila will review and discuss their updates on both projects. Little Manila Rising is looking forward to providing you all with updates on where they are in the work, and they welcome your questions, comments, and feedback. We would now like to pass it to Nico from Little Manila Rising.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. If you don't know who I am, I'm Nicholas Tamayo. I'm the Urban Forestry Director for Little Manila Rising. I'm excited to present some updates. I have a brief slideshow. It's only 5 slides. And so I guess there have been some questions answered, and I think I may answer those questions over the course of the 5 slides. But if I don't, there's going to be a lot of time for Q&A. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. Okay, sure. Can everybody see my screen? Okay.
Can you make it larger?
Yeah, can you do present mode, please, Nicholas?
Yes.
Thank you.
There we go. All right. So since we last spoke, some things have been happening on this project. Our first priority on our timeline was hiring for the roles that we outlined in the budget. And so we are going to be hiring a forestry technician, 1 FTE, so a full-time employee, and 1 to 2 truss builders, and those are at a 0.25 FTE, so about a quarter time position. About 10 hours per week if we hire two of them, and it could be up to 20 hours per week if we hire 1. There's some flexibility there. And we are leaning towards hiring 2 truss builders just to maximize the budget and get to as many sites and spaces in the community as possible. So that you all know, the forestry technician will be primarily responsible for planting and maintaining trees, conducting site assessments through our My Free Tree program, which is the way that residents are able to get trees planted directly onto their property or on the planting strip in front of their property. They will be primarily responsible for finding those planting sites. So going on the street and canvassing locations and putting them into our software systems. And they'll be primarily responsible for leading community planting events. So this is an on-the-ground position that is really specialized in tree care and proper tree planting, and will be in the field about 75 to 80% of the time. The truss builder role is the role that we've identified as being really important for a project like this. They'll be primarily responsible for conducting outreach through canvassing and tabling. There'll be a support for the My Free Tree assessments. They'll be primarily responsible for leading public workshops and info sessions through the project area, and really building rapport and maintaining relationships with people that receive our trees through the My Free Tree program. So this is an outreach position, but it is a skilled forester. And so we were really looking for folks that have that combination of skills. And luckily we have a training program that graduates people that have been spending hours for 15 weeks learning all of these skills. So we had 6 applicants for the technician opening, primarily folks that have graduated through our training program. And we had 3 applicants for the truss builder position. 2 of the 3 were graduates or soon to be graduates of our training program. And we made our selections, and we'll be sending out offer letters next Friday. And the official start date for these positions is July 1st. So getting staff on board to our team, familiar with the project area, and beginning to go out and look at sites, start doing the work that we do in the summer, which is doing maintenance on trees that we've planted on our other projects, but for new sites, meeting with people, taking photographs, creating planting plans, all of that pre-work before a tree ever gets planted in the ground. There is another on-the-ground position that we haven't began hiring for. It's the forestry manager. And we are currently working through some budget adjustments to try and get that pay rate to fit within our organization structure. And so we are doing some work on the back end. We expect that we would begin opening up the position, applications for the position in late July, early August, with this position hopefully getting started on the project in September. So more to come on that, I'm sure, at the next CSC. For HIFI, which is our primary subcontractor, they're our technical assistants. We are currently working with Valley Air District to finalize their MOU to bring them on board. And so we are optimistic that they will be on this project by July. Okay, moving on. We have done a number of site visits with SUSD. So questions about maintenance. We were hoping to alleviate that maintenance burden on our own staff by partnering with institutions and companies and other organizations that have maintenance staff, have a budget for maintenance, and need trees. And so schoolyard trees are a big need in our community. And that was one of the priorities that you all identified for this project in addition to street trees. And so we have met with Jermaine Reese, who works for SUSD, and we've looked at 2 sites so far, Merlot Institute of Environmental Technology and Hamilton Elementary School for schoolyard trees. We also plan on doing some site visits at Hazleton Elementary School, Monroe Elementary School, Washington Elementary School. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to prioritize sites throughout the project area. And if you all have sites that you don't see on this list, please let us know. We will prioritize them and we will go out with SUSD and take a look. But there is interest with SUSD to work with us on this project. There is interest to have our staff train their landscape on tree care, on mulching, on pruning, on planting, and that's all good. We want our institutions to have staff that are trained in tree care because we need trees and we need them to be prioritizing the maintenance over the course of the tree's life. We can get that tree's life started and we can help build up the capacity of the community. And so that's what we're hoping to do with the school district. As far as planting operations go, we were able to get a tree plotter account for this project. So if you don't know, Tree Plotter is an online software that we use to map out trees, track our work records, take photographs. It's really a work system that we use to map out our projects. And so we have secured a Tree Plotter account for our AB617 trees and are in the process of kind of building out that interface. We are also in the process of creating outreach materials to begin canvassing neighborhoods for this project in July and August once we have our staff onboarded. And while we haven't identified our first neighborhood to focus on, we are hoping that high-fee support and working with community members that reach out and say, hey, you know, like there's this street that, you know, needs trees, or they remove trees on this street. Can you guys check it out? That's the way that we're going to do this organically with all of your help, in addition to sending our team to kind of go block by block and canvas every site possible. So with all of that in mind, we're really expecting our planting season to begin at the middle or end of September or even early October, which is right about when we would plant anyways, because the weather really starts to change. We are currently accepting My Free Tree applications to make it more streamlined. So we can do site assessments for you or your neighbors this summer, kind of immediately. There will be contact information at the end of this presentation, but we can absolutely begin the prep work for sites so that come October, we can hit the ground running and begin planting lots of trees. The big kicker for this project, of course, is the city of Stockton. We have had some preliminary conversations with the Public Works Department about permits for this particular project, for a shared maintenance agreement for this particular project. I want you all to understand that this is new for the city to enter into a maintenance agreement that is not associated with a project that they are on. And so we are navigating that delicately. We are likely going to need exact sites before that conversation really kicks off. And so I really am focusing on these other partnerships first. You know, let's find the people that can support us with maintenance. Let's find the My Free Tree recipients. Let's map out all of these trees so that when we can go to Public Works and say, hey, we have these 500 tree sites, here's exactly where they are. These are the ones that we want you to participate in the maintenance of. And this is what we'll be doing for the next 10 years. So that's been our process and approach with the city. Public Works is going through some transitions right now. And so we're just being more delicate and more intentional about building partnerships with these other entities. So that's it for urban greening. I will pause here and see if anybody has any questions about urban greening before I move on to the vegetative barriers part.
Yeah, thank you, Nico. Debbie, I see your hand raised, and then Everett.
Yes, I know I spoke with you, excuse me. I spoke with you 8 months ago to find out some more about the plan. And we talked about this street personally, my street that I live on, and my house. And you said there was another couple of programs that you were running for trees. We've never been contacted. Myself, somebody was supposed to contact me. And I was going to kind of be the example for everybody, because pretty much everyone on the street got their tree cut down except for 3 people. And I haven't heard anything from you guys. So, and I don't think that my free tree application was ready. I don't know. When you and I talked, I don't remember anything about a free tree application. Although I figured there would be one eventually, but I wanted to get in on it right away because I knew it was going to be popular. That's why I contacted you. So, why haven't I heard anything, basically?
Yeah. No, I remember our conversation, Debbie.
Yeah,
It was
we talked for about
a-
an hour.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. I think I think where we left off in that conversation is that as soon as we kind of began this project, we would reach out to you, and part of the reason why we haven't been able to reach out even from the beginning of, I guess, you guys approving this project for us is that we haven't had staff for it. The first phase has always been the plan to hire first, and then get our technical assistants in, and then in this first summer begin rolling out the opportunities to partner with you all on tree plantings. And so I think when we talked, the project hadn't begun yet. And so I apologize that I hadn't followed up. The opportunity to follow up is right now. Nobody has missed out on this opportunity. In fact, nobody should miss out on this opportunity. There are a lot of trees to plant. And this My Free Tree application is live. And so we can begin doing these site assessments now that we are fully funded, and we can pay people to go out to your communities, which have not been in our service area. And so we have in some ways been acting like there's a wall around our service area. We do not go out of that because our grants do not pay our staff to go outside of that. But now they do, and now we'll have staff. And so I encourage anybody, the way to get on this list is to follow the link, because reaching out to me is I have a harder time sending you to the folks that need to take your information. We have these forms in place so that you get put on the list, and we can build our work plan to get to you on a schedule. So I hear you, Debbie, and I apologize that I didn't follow up between our last conversations, but right now is when we're really kicking this project off, and you have not missed the mark. We're going to visit your house and all of your neighbors.
Thank you, Nico. Everett, I see your hand up.
Yes. Again, this is Everett Johnson, and I was just curious. We had talked about.
I wasn't quite done, but that's okay. Thank you.
My apologies. Did you have one more thing to say before I transition to Everett? My apologies, Debbie.
I did have another question. So Regina brought up about trees dying. Are those your trees, or are those other people that have planted trees that are having issues?
I don't know the exact trees that Regina is speaking to, but we do occasionally have trees that die. Mostly they die due to vandalism. We are pretty consistent about maintaining and monitoring the trees that we plant, and we haven't had maybe more than 10 or 15 trees die this year due to health reasons. We've had several trees die due to vandalism. So I'm not too sure, Regina, which trees you're speaking to.
Okay, I just wanted to know, I wanted to give you, find out if there was a chance they couldn't be your trees. Yeah, I would expect people vandalism on that kind of a system. I don't know why they have to do that, but thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nico.
Yeah, and I did see the questions in the chat. So we don't have any trees planted for this project yet. So there is no map for trees already planted. We've discussed with Valley Air District about presenting a map of trees that have been planted on a quarterly basis. And I think it's something that, we discussed early on. Is that going to be the schedule that you all want to see? I'm going to meet whatever schedule you all want to see, but I think to really get a good picture quarterly, so every 3-4 months, you'll get a good picture of what we're working on through the maps. You'll see the map grow and populate. And so there's no map currently. We do have the software to build the map. And as far as maintenance schedule for the trees, we have a maintenance schedule for our currently planted trees on our other projects. And we are pretty good about sticking to it. We're going to be a lot better sticking to it with new staff. And we will have a maintenance schedule for the trees that we plant on this project. But no, we do not plant trees on Tilly Lewis.
Thank you, Nico. Again, thank you for answering, I think, some of Regina's questions that were in the chat. We still have to get to vegetative barriers as well. And so, Everett, I will pass it to you for your question.
Yeah, my question will be quick. We at the in-person meeting, we did mention to Little Manila about there's the trees there at the Stribley Park Community Center on the corner of March and B Street. There are some trees that are affected. They have worms coming out, and they're right at the location where they do the big tables and what have you there. And there might be other trees, but they were going to talk to the city about those trees. And I just wanted to know, community is asking me, did we get any information from the city yet? And I was going to ask that question. Had they got a chance to talk to the city about those particular trees at Stribley Park Community Center that are affected with bugs and whatever it is that they're affected with?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we've talked to them about those trees before. They are not on any removal schedule currently. I know I can't diagnose the issues. I know that they drop sap, and I'm pretty sure they are home to several beehives, which you obviously don't want next to your picnic tables. Those trees are, I think I said this in the in-person. While I didn't get an immediate answer on those specific trees, the city is bringing on a contract arborist to work on our other project, the Transformative Climate Communities Urban Greening Project. So I'm really hopeful that I'll be able to work with those individuals and direct them to these types of problem trees, or trees that appear sick, or trees that have been raised to us by community members that they're fearful of, that are on their home property. And they'll be able to go and assess those trees. And I believe they'll have a budget to do removals or prunings. And so, yeah, that's kind of as far as I can take it. And I'm hopeful that I'll be able to work with them proactively on some mature trees in addition to our new plantings. So yeah, Everett, that's all I can really say on that right now.
I appreciate that, and I know it's going to take some time, but that's why the community is asking, because there are worms that drop off the trees into the on the tables and around the vicinity area. They're some type of worm. It's not just bugs, but they're worms that are coming from the plants and from the trees itself. So whatever you can do will be appreciated, and I can go back and tell the community that we're looking into it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I would just say, let's get the experts in, and I'm gonna work with those experts to prioritize those trees and a lot of other trees in our community.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Everett. And I think, Nico, we can transition to vegetative barriers.
Okay. All right, so vegetated barriers, that's our other project to do screen tree plantings. And so Hyphy Design Labs is a partner on this project as well. And so the MOU process is also impacting their ability to get started on this project with us. So hopefully July we'll be able to show some progress with them. This project is where we'll really be leaning on their technical expertise and experience doing these types of plantings. This is new for Little Manila Rising and for our community. And so, yeah, really hopeful that Hyphy's presence you'll be able to get more out of a presentation with them on board than just me, because this is new for me. I'm learning as much as I can right now. And so, yeah, they'll be doing in-person, on-the-ground air monitoring in Stockton, and really helping us develop the maintenance agreements with these institutions, these property holders, to get these vegetated barriers planted. So our primary partner for these projects, we're hopeful and really optimistic that our Caltrans District 10 will be amenable to working with us and getting these sites on at least a few locations. We've had a number of meetings with them. In fact, they have been very proactive about following up with us. They're really excited about this project. I think that it's going to be a good partnership, and they're going to be proactive in the maintenance and creating the maintenance for these trees. So yeah, we're going to do a site visit in July and look at a number of the locations that we presented to you all in the original proposal. Start trying to think through what this could look like. We have started to discuss the ways that we'll get these trees planted. There's two primary ways that we can go about it. It's through the Adopt a Highway program, which I'm sure you all have seen driving on our freeways. Any organization can adopt a highway, and basically you can design a landscaping through that. It's their easiest way to get access to Caltrans right away. You work with their landscape architects, you create your tree planting species palette, and then you design it with them. So, because there's a lot of specifications, you can't plant trees past a certain point for safety reasons if cars have to veer off the side of the road. And so that seems that seems like a good way for us to go about it. And we're learning more with them about the Adopt a Highway program. The other option is to actually get an easement permit to sort of own or just really manage that stretch of land on our own. That's more lengthy. There's a lot more preliminary work to get that permit. We'd have to create the designs with an architect and then present that to them and have everything really fleshed out in detail. And that may take a long time before we ever get trees planted. And so they're encouraging us to go through the Adopt a Highway process, and we're also really working to figure out how we can do it through that way, because we want to get these sites planted early so that we can monitor them, we can measure the impact of them on the air quality, and we can train our staff on maintenance of these types of trees, because it's different than individual tree planting sites on a street. Instead of one tree planted every 30 feet, you're looking at, 15 trees or 20 trees planted every 30 feet, really tightly packed together. There's a different type of maintenance and pruning style for trees like this. And we're going to be installing irrigation systems on these sites. So there's going to be a lot more monitoring to make sure that the system is actually working the way we want it to. So Caltrans is really hopeful, and we're excited that we have a Caltrans district that wants to work with us so closely. The school district is also really eager to work with us on this site. It kind of aligns with their own kind of moving towards green schoolyards on South Stockton campuses. And so we will be looking at schools that are adjacent to pollution sources, whether that's the freeway or rail lines, trucking routes, the list goes on. We'll be looking at those sites to do some schoolyard type of vegetated barriers. There's also some city sites that we could look at on the frontage road. So French Camp Turnpike, Manthe Road. There are some city sites that we could look at, but just kind of knowing the red tape around working with the city on tree plantings, it seems like the better option would be to partner with these other entities. And then the Edible Schoolyard Farm in Box Tract is a site that has kind of approached us, and we've approached them about giving them coverage from the train tracks that are literally right across the fence from their farms, where they bring students, young students, to like be outside and pick veggies and just like enjoy the space. It would be great to give them some coverage and some like beautiful trees to look at instead of the train tracks. So while we haven't had a concrete conversation about it, like even just vocalizing that there's interest, I think sets us up to have a summer where we can plan something out with them. So those are the main partners for this project that we're hoping to actually bring in on the ground. I think I mentioned that this is new for LMR. It's a new type of tree planting for myself. And so we want to take advantage of the other AB617 recipients in other cities' experience doing this project. I don't know if y'all aren't familiar, Tree Fresno has had a really successful vegetated berries project. And they've partnered with their Caltrans district. They've done city frontage roads. They've done private businesses on warehouses. These are the types of sites that we have in Stockton. And so we're going to be visiting them on July 28th. I'm not sure if it'll just be myself or myself and Hyphy. And we're going to actually see what these sites look like, because you can plant vegetated barriers that have really big trees, that are in giant giant boxes, or you can do vegetated barriers with smaller trees and allow them to grow. Tree Fresno has done both, so getting to see the different scales of sites is really interesting for me, because if we can plant smaller trees and make an immediate impact, then we can do more sites. The smaller the tree, the cheaper the tree. And so, if we do one big site with big trees, that might eat up our whole budget. So if we go that route, we want to make sure it's really impactful. But if we can do smaller trees and make an impact to a wider area, that may be the way that we want to go. So we want to see what these actually look like. We want to learn about their engagement strategies. We know that they've done some open houses for the local business communities, bringing a lot of like the warehouse owners and the packing site, like the packing warehouses. Hey, you can get a vegetated barrier because you're creating pollution for the community around you. This is a free project, like give us access, and then use your water to pay for the water, for the trees, to build the irrigation system, and you pay for the water, and you're doing something good for your community. We want to learn about how they're actually creating those strategies and engaging in those conversations. So that's on the 28th. Yeah, and so lastly, if you are interested in what we're doing on our other projects, if you're interested in following the progress of this, project, our Instagram handle is Greenlining the Hood. Currently, it will change to Planting Healthy Air, but that change will happen over the summer. You can also follow at Little Manila Stockton. If you are interested in becoming a My Free Tree Steward, you can send us an email with your name, contact info, and your address to trees@littlemanila.org. We are going to have a proper application form that will roll out in July. We just don't have it now, but if you reach out to us at this email, we will respond to you and we will begin scheduling a site assessment for your property in July. And yeah, that's my presentation. So thank you all. I appreciate the time.
Thank you so much, Nico. Yeah, I think it was a really comprehensive review of all the updates. And so I know everyone appreciates that clarity. I want to be mindful of time because I know we still have some more updates that folks wanted to provide to CSC members. But I think we have time for one question. And if not, I know Little Manila has been very receptive and can come back. We can also make sure that the email and all their communication information is in the chat and in the email. But maybe one question before we transition to standing updates.
This is Stephanie. Maybe I could just wrap this up by just again thanking Nico and your whole team. I think everyone is so excited. I just will preview for the CSC, maybe just to close us off, that we are working very closely with Little Manila, that once we maybe like hit it sounds like the fall is a good time to maybe kick things off. We want to hold some kind of planting event that we invite the whole CSC to. I think that'd be something that's really awesome to see kind of the fruits of all of our labors, especially Little Manila's. That's something that we are coordinating, and we'll share updates with the CSC as that planning happens.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nico. Thank you so much, Little Manila Rising. And thank you everyone for all the great questions in the chat and coming off mute and asking questions. I think it just helps clarify for where they're at in the project. So with that, I think we can transition to standing updates. We have a new update that we wanted to make sure folks would be able to hear from. We have California Emerging Technology Fund in addition to some of our typical partners. And so I will pass it to Steph just to give some context before they give their update.
Thank you, Jared. I wanted to just provide a little bit of context because this is a little bit different than I think what we are typically doing in our meetings and the topics we talk about, but it is related. So I just wanted to take a second to introduce a couple folks that are coming from CETF, or the California Emerging Technology Fund, and then also their partners at Valley Vision, who are kicking off a project in the Stockton AB617 boundary that's related to connecting homes in the boundary to internet. So it is a little bit different than what we're doing in the CERT, but I know Kirsten will do a great job kind of describing the intersections between their work and improving air quality. So I'll go ahead and pass off to Kirsten and Navreet to give a preview of some work that they're doing in AB617 communities.
Great, thank you, Stephanie. And can you see my presentation? Okay, thumbs up, very good. So I'll make it brief, but as Stephanie mentioned, we really appreciate being here this evening to talk with you about a special program that we have just launched and how it can serve residents of Stockton and as well as some other neighboring communities. So my name is Kirsten Olson, and I'm on the research and policy team at the California Emerging Technology Fund, also called CETF. CETF is a public benefit foundation for the digital age. We were founded in 2006, and we were established for the purpose of achieving ubiquitous access to broadband and advanced services throughout California. We've been on a mission for well over a decade to forge partnerships and foster public policy that will close the digital divide and achieve digital equity for all Californians. For this particular program, we've been awarded a CASF grant, a California Advanced Services Fund grant from the CPUC to serve AB617 communities. So I know that you're all familiar with AB617 communities, so I won't go through the description of them. But we were awarded a CASF grant by the CPUC to promote broadband connectivity in AB617 communities. The research basis that we used to make this application was our 2023 statewide survey that we conducted throughout the state that found that 13% of households in AB617 communities remain unconnected. And this was a very robust survey that we conducted using multiple methods. One was phone. We used good old-fashioned calling folks on the phone and querying them about their broadband connectivity status. We also used a text function where people took a text survey, as well as an online survey for those that are connected. And we found that approximately 13% of households in AB617 communities remain unconnected. And when we use the term unconnected, we really mean no connection to the internet at all. We use a related term, which would be underconnected, to describe a household that has connectivity to the internet through a mobile device, but does not have a reliable broadband connection at home. So with this grant, we are choosing to serve 5 AB617 communities to get started, and those 5 are listed on this slide. West Oakland in the zip code of 94607, East Oakland in 94603 and 94621, Richmond in 94801, 804, and 806, South Sacramento in 95823, 24, and 28, and Stockton in 95202, 03, 05, and 06. Over the course of this program, we intend to connect 4,250 unconnected households, enroll them in a low-cost internet service plan. In addition, 1,000 households will be trained in digital literacy and verified proficient using our digital literacy training course. So the community resources that we intend to rely upon to achieve this goal are listed on this slide here. Digital navigators are first and foremost. A digital navigator is a member of a community, someone who lives within those zip codes that I mentioned on the previous slide, who really knows the community very well and knows where the pockets of need are in a community in terms of broadband connectivity. And oftentimes digital navigators have experienced low connectivity themselves, or their friends or relatives have experienced it, and they know exactly where the need is. We're looking for 2 digital navigators in each of those 5 communities, so 10 digital navigators total. And as I mentioned, the digital navigators must be residents of those zip codes in order to serve this project. We're also seeking to form what we call digital navigator hubs, which are, and we're seeking to form 1 or 2 of them in each of the AB617 communities. A digital navigator hub is the term that we use to refer to not only a physical space where we can leave flyers and other collateral that promote this program to make sure as many residents as possible are aware of it, but it's also, a hub is also an organization. And so where we're looking to find a CBO, a community-based organization that's located in those AB617 communities, that will be the employer of the digital navigators. So we would provide the basis to get started, but the digital navigator hubs would be the employer of the digital navigators. And the digital navigator hubs are also responsible for providing digital literacy training that we provide support for. We have 2 partners that we've connected with to meet our goals for this project. In Alameda County and Contra Costa County, we've partnered with Tech Exchange, which is a wonderful tech refurbisher that provides refurbished devices to residents of Alameda County and Contra Costa County. They also provide ongoing tech support services for those refurbished devices for quite some time after the device finds a second life in a new home. And then Valley Vision is our partner to coordinate outreach in Sacramento County and in San Joaquin County. And my colleague Navreet from Valley Vision is on this call as well. Okay, so I want to make sure there's no questions so far. Okay, very good. So how will AB617 residents learn about this project? Well, first, we are going to engage in a large-scale direct mail campaign. We're going to mail 160,000 plus large-size postcards directly into those 13 zip codes that I mentioned in West Oakland, East Oakland, Richmond, South Sacramento, and Stockton. And if you can just imagine, it's not your typical, postcard that you may get lost in the shuffle of other mail that's in a mailbox, but it's a large size postcard. So it will hopefully stand out amongst other items in a mailbox. And then we also have a call center. So our call center takes calls from California residents all across the state. But we have dedicated phone numbers that will be dedicated to each of the 5 regions. And our call center agents are trained specifically to serve the residents of those regions. So for Stockton in particular, we have a Stockton specific phone number that will be printed on the postcards and all of our flyers and our website and all of our promotional materials. And when a Stockton resident calls that phone number, they can be assured that the call center agent will be trained to interact directly with Stockton residents and help them with getting signed up for an affordable internet plan. And the wonderful perk of this program is that the call center not only talks with the household about what their internet needs are and what is affordable for them in their budget, but once the household has determined that they would like to sign up for a low-cost internet plan, our call center agents stay on the phone with that household, and then they conduct a 3-way call with the internet service provider. So let's say it's AT&T, just for example. They would stay on the phone with the household, the Stockton household, call AT&T and make sure the household walks through the process of getting signed up for a new affordable internet plan, and really prevent those AT&T customer service agents from trying to upsell the household on a more expensive plan, or or trying to convince that household to purchase other products. So it's a really wonderful service that our call center provides. And as I mentioned, they're specifically trained to deal to prepare to talk to residents just by the phone number that they've called in on. We're also going to host 5 community forums. We've conducted 2 so far in West Oakland and East Oakland. Our next community forum is in Richmond, and that's next Tuesday, June 10th from 5:30 to 7 p.m., and that will be at Richmond Public Library. We'd love to host any and all of you at all of these forums. Our next forum after next Tuesday will be in Stockton on Wednesday, June 18th at 5 p.m. And then the one following that will be in South Sacramento on Wednesday, June 25th at 5 p.m. Another method in which we'll promote this project is that we will create flyers from and with the CBO digital navigators. So again, using that already existing relationship that the digital navigators have with their communities, we'll develop flyers that have appropriate messaging, and hopefully we'll get the attention of residents in need of these services. And as I mentioned, our call center has dedicated agents trained to serve residents of these communities and to assist with enrollment in an affordable internet service plan and to register for our digital literacy training course. And just a quick note about the digital literacy training course. It's very comprehensive. It takes what we call a pre-assessment with the household to understand what their digital literacy needs are. And then we develop the training course based on their entry-level assessment. And then we follow and track the resident as they proceed through the digital literacy course. And then we provide a post-assessment at the end of the course so the household can see how far they've come and how much they've learned as a part of the digital literacy course. So that's very quick description of the project. We're just getting it off the ground. This project in its entirety will last about a year. So we really would like to, promote this with you and all of your residents and make sure you know about it, and that you can, hopefully let anyone in your community know about it, particularly if they would like to consider being a digital navigator or a digital navigator hub. And I see let me see, is there a question? Yeah, the call center is also accessible in several languages. Thank you, Navreed, for posting that in the chat. When will there be information about the June Stockton meeting? We're very close to selecting the venue for that, and we will have it for you very soon. As I mentioned, it's coming up, excuse me, in a couple of weeks. The Stockton one will be on Wednesday, June 18th at 5 p.m. So we'll have that info for you very soon.
So this is Jared speaking. Yeah, but thank you so much, Kirsten. We really appreciate that information. I want to name and know that we are a little bit over and want to start wrapping up and be mindful of folks' times. But yeah, I wanted to thank you so much for presenting, Kirsten, and remind folks that this space is a time for anyone to share about projects that are impacting folks that might live in the boundaries of AB617. And so in the interest of time, I think if any other organization had standing updates, we will provide those via email. And so you can look forward to that. We also wanted to remind folks that as we are wrapping up, our next CSC meeting is scheduled to meet in August, as we usually go dark in July. And so it is scheduled virtual via Zoom on Wednesday, August 6th at 5 p.m. And the Air District is proposing to talk about SERP implementation as well as wildfire outreach and education. And so we are looking forward to talking about that in August. We also want to start wrapping up, and so we really appreciate everyone coming on, being engaged, and asking questions. I'm going to pass it to Laura to read our action items. And if we have any members from the public, this is a time to type any comments or question as Laura is presenting that. But I will now pass it to my colleague.
Thank you, Jared. I think in the interest of time, we can go ahead and send those updates via email. But yeah, if there's any members of the public here that would like to elevate something really briefly, we welcome that, and we thank our CSC members for staying a bit past time.
So we'll give it a minute, but not seeing any comments or anyone coming off mute. We thank everyone for staying over time. We're really mindful of your time and appreciate it. And really thank everyone for an engaged meeting. A lot was covered, and so we really just are appreciative of the effort and passion for the community of Stockton. And so if nothing else, Steph or Sarah, I'll pass it to you if anything else. But if not, we will see you all in August.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thanks, all.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice meeting, Dr. Farrell.